Never had it.
I'm so
Hey
excited.
everyone, it's Lindsay on the Action Hour, and today I have Maria Leonardi. Maria is an amazing activist. She is an effective activist, and she is going to help you and all of us tell us how we can become more powerful activists. I want to just read a little intro quote here about Maria, a fellow activist, Trey Morrow. Oh, Trey Morrow, I apologize. Trey, I hope you're watching. This is what he said. On any given day, you may find her handcuffed to a car, drenched in fake blood, getting arrested in a dog costume, mentoring new activists, rescuing ducklings or roosters. I understand you just rescued a rooster out of a sewer, or transporting chickens to safety. There's nothing Maria won't do to help animals. Well, Maria, thank you so much. On behalf of our listeners and watch and viewers, I know everyone thanks you so much for your activism, and we want to learn how to become more powerful activists. So thank you for being on today. How are you
Absolutely.
doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here. I really am. I feel so honored to be a part of this today. And yes, thank you to my friend Trey who wrote that beautiful bio for me.
Yeah, I want to go into the news story that about the deer. That's how we got to meet each other. So let's just, without any further, I want to just bring that up and let's go ahead and watch that.
First, animal rights activists and hunters agreeing on something.
Tonight, both are opposed to a plan for controlling the deer population at Kensington Metro Park.
7 Action News reporter Kimberly Craig has the controversy over culling the deer.
Tomorrow is when Metro Park police were supposed to use trained sharpshooters to cull the deer population here at Kensington. And it's not something just animal rights activists are against.
Kensington Metro Park! Stop the culling now!
A small group of protesters met in front of the administrative offices for Kensington Metro Parks to show their opposition to the culling of deer that was set to take place tomorrow. A call that animal rights activist Maria Leonardi believes will take place without public notice.
Because of the community backlash, they've actually gone and are going to do this under the cover of darkness and in secrecy and not make this public knowledge when the culling is going to take place.
In his newsletter from early January, Huron Clinton Metro Parks said they would be using trained sharpshooters with Metro Parks police on February 11th. But just yesterday on their Facebook page, they said there is no deer cull scheduled for tomorrow. We reached out to the park spokesperson to find out if the cull will be unannounced, but they have not returned any of our messages.
To not know when and to not be informed is disturbing.
And hunters we've talked to said they're opposed to how the Metro Parks is planning to carry out the cull with trained sharpshooters.
You could actually turn it into something good where you're letting disabled vets go out there and, cull the deer. They would use the meat. So, I mean, it's missed opportunity. So that's where I don't agree with it, to bring in sharpshooters.
Why aren't we looking at alternative methods that are effective and are not lethal to these animals, like immunocontraception that exists? It's actually an animal protein that makes the deer, the females, infertile for up to 3 years. We're already taking so much from them. Why do we deserve to take more? Their lives have to control the population somehow.
And one neighbor who lives nearby who did not want to go on camera said there's no need for a deer culling. He said coyotes take care of the deer and people take care of the coyotes. In Brighton, Kimberly Craig, 7 Action News.
Wow, Maria, what a story. And I want you to walk us through now how you became involved in this and how the activism that you and your fellow activists took, made this turnaround. Tell us the story.
Absolutely, Lindsay. First, I want to thank my friends Ellie and Samantha who spoke so beautifully at that demonstration that day. So January 6th is the date that this memo went out to neighbors in the community, warning them that basically sharpshooters were going to be firing off guns within the park on 2 dates, February 4th as well as February 11th. January 26th is a date that an article went out into the Detroit Free Press with the chief of natural resources speaking on behalf of the park system, talking about the culling and how they planned on executing 50 female deer within the park. February 2nd is when, we started kind of loosely planning to call the park system and urge them to take alternative methods that were not only ethical and humane, but also that would be effective as well for the animals, such as immunocontraception. Immunocontraception is administered through darting as opposed to, taking the lives of these deer. And February 4th, the deer got really lucky because the original culling, I hate to use the term culling, so I want to quote that. It's actually a massacre that was going to take place. It was actually postponed due to the weather. There was a blizzard that day, which was an absolute,
Act of God clause, we call it.
seriously. I was so grateful for this blizzard. We got 2.5 feet of snow here in Michigan. And February 8th is when I decided that we were going to infiltrate this Parks and Recreation meeting, because that even though the park system didn't announce that February 11th there would be a culling, the park system actually realized that they could do this in one day, hence why they only announced February 4th. So in my head, I'm like, okay, so if February 4th didn't work out because of the blizzard, they're going to attempt to do this on February 11th, and that's when they're going to follow through, because the permits that were issued were for only these 2 dates, and that's it. So February 8th is when we joined the Parks and Rec meeting. Unfortunately, we were getting the runaround by everyone. No one wanted to take responsibility. Also, I want to mention, I had no clue who was actually in charge of calling the shots, literally the shots that were going to take the lives of these deer. I had no clue. So I was getting the runaround from everyone because no one wanted to take accountability for making this executive decision within the park system. And then, after that meeting, everyone's like, oh, it's not us, it's so-and-so. So after that meeting, I just started a petition on change.org, which was going to all of these head decision makers within the park system.
Well, let's slow down here a moment, because we're getting a lot of information, because the reason we're going through these steps is to show other activists how they can take steps. So let's stop at the petition. And I do have the petition here. Let me show it. I don't think I'm sharing that yet. Let me share that screen here. Here it is. Here we go. So this petition here is still available. Now, is it something that you still are looking to get additional funding for? Is that why it's still up, or is it? Tell us.
Yeah, I still have it up because, my plan is to continue to target the park system until we know for certain that they're going to take alternative methods. They're currently seeking alternative methods right now, but I want to make sure that the community, who are considered stakeholders, have, their say, because this is a public park system. We want our, our opposition to be heard. So yeah, I would love for you to share the petition, and hopefully we can get more signatures there.
Yeah, we will put the link to that up when the broadcast's over, because if we put it up before, we find we get less views. So that's why we do it that way. We'll be putting that up. So go ahead, continue with your story. You put up the petition, and then what happened?
Yep, I put up the petition that same day, because we were still kind of continuously calling these leaders in the park system. One of them did make a statement to a community member, and this is where they stated that, as mentioned in the media with Channel 7 that you saw, I stated that the park system, because of the opposition, we're now planning on continuing with this deer massacre, but because of the opposition from the public, they were now going to do it not only unannounced, but in the middle of the night, with police guarding all of the entry points to the park. So I made it very clear that this was also a community issue. You know, these people within the community should also know that this is happening within the park, which is just a few feet from their front doorsteps. So if this is happening within the park, so I use that route as well. You know, I wanted the community members to have their say too. Like, we're worried about our families. We're also worried about these deer who are going to be needlessly killed, but we're also worried about the safety of our families with shots firing in the park in the middle of the night. So I use that route as well when speaking with the park system. And on February 9th, yeah, he stated that to the community member who was very worried about her family. And that obviously, you know, alarmed me as well. And February 10th is when, during lunch hour, I got a small group of activists together outside of the administrative building within the park. This is where these leaders work out of. And that is the same day that we got so lucky that the media showed up and they spoke with us. And the animals were so lucky that day. The night before the second permit was issued, you know, for February 11th, this media piece comes out, this segment comes out that was very much pro animal. It showed hunters opposing this deer call. It showed activists opposing this deer call. And I thought that that really had a huge impact on the following day, because that same afternoon, the same afternoon that the administrative building saw that the media was there, saw that these activists were outside, they made a public announcement on the park system page saying, you know, there's actually, you know, despite everything circulating about a deer call, there is actually not a deer call scheduled on February 11th. I do believe that our presence there that afternoon had an impact on them posting that public statement, as well as the media segment that came out, that was going to come out that evening too.
Yeah, I do have to cut in here a moment and invite the park services on, Metro Park Services on, at any time to tell their side of the story to Jane Unchained. We'd love to hear from them and talk to them.
Absolutely. I would love that too.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. Yes, we would love to ask them some questions, and it would be great, and love to ask them about this immunocontraception program, and if this is an alternative. One of the questions I would have as a member of the public and a taxpayer, perhaps not in that state, but I'm pretty sure other people feel the same way I do. Why aren't they using this, and how does it work? Can you explain a little bit more about the immunocontraception? We want to stay on subject, but just jump in on that a little bit if you would.
Yeah, so the immunocontraception is, like I said, administered by a dart, non-lethal, and it actually makes the does infertile for up to 3 years. And, you know, the park system has stated that these deer are transient. They're actually not locked, they're not confined to the park itself, you know, and we believe that with other park systems that have used this, as well as other communities who have used alternative methods, such as going in and actually operating on these deer.
You said that the park said that the deer are able to leave. Then why wouldn't, if there was a scarcity of food, if the animals are free to leave that area, wouldn't they move on to other areas? That's one question I would have. And the second question is, does that mean that they felt they would be immunizing deer that would leave the area and therefore would not solve the problem? I don't understand that logic. Do you have any more information? Or I guess I would have to, if they would love to come on and talk to us, we could find out more about it. But.
Absolutely. I don't necessarily understand myself, because, you know, once you remove deer from a herd, more deer just come into that area and take advantage of those resources. And an abundance of resources actually helps escalate the breeding process for these deer. So in the 20 years that they've been doing this deer management program, it is proving to be ineffective because they're going in every single year and killing deer. The first year they did it, they shot 242 deer. and their deer management plan also has not been updated since the year 2015. And that's something else that I would like to see, some information on, is maybe an updated version of the deer management plan myself. So I think you just showed the picture of the call to action. So February 11th, there was not a deer call. This is the call to action that we put out on February 16th. Because there was no deer call on the 11th, I'm still assuming that they're going to still go in one day under the cover of darkness and shoot these 50 deer and their unborn fawns. So we had this call to action. They were getting calls left and right. Their voicemails were filling up. One of them even changed the name on their voicemail, and even to deter people from calling them. I mean, we were so grateful for the community's support in this, and willingness to speak up for these deer. And I was communicating during all of this with park leaders, these decision makers. And on February 23rd, I received an email stating that the Metro Park System will release a statement within the next 10 days regarding their 2021 deer management program. And on February 27th, that was announced that the deer call was actually canceled. And in this article that came out again in the Detroit Free Press, it stated, lots of the opposition being a factor in this victory for the deer, the public speaking up. And they even quoted in that article that they would be seeking alternative methods going forward that were effective.
That's wonderful. That just goes to show that people can make a difference. So I want to jump ahead a little bit here because we don't want to run out of time. And I do want to, before we go too far, let's just jump over and show the organization, this new program that you're involved in, and we'll come back to more of your activism in a moment. But we do want to make sure for people that might be popping on and off that they do get the main message is to take advantage of taking action for change, this amazing opportunity. So tell us a little bit about it, and I'm going to try to navigate through the site as you do.
Absolutely. So I'm a mentor with the Animal Activism Mentorship Program. We are a free mentorship program for anyone who wants to learn how to advocate for animals. We put on workshops, and it is a fairly new program. We've been doing this. I think its birth date was almost a year ago now, and we represent 24 different U.S. states. We're in 16 countries, and as of December, we had about 135 new mentees sign up for the year. So we're very excited, to bring free workshops to the community and people who want to learn how to do what we did here in Michigan and create pressure campaigns against these entities that are exploiting and harming animals. But also we have incredible workshops that are informative on the different forms of animal exploitation, different forms of advocacy, sanctuary work, how to volunteer with sanctuaries, animal care, you name it. I mean, we've done a workshop on it.
Great. How does this work specifically? They go and sign up. Is there a cost involved? Tell us the details like that, please.
No, it's absolutely free. We just do it voluntarily, and you sign up at animalmentorship.com, and a mentor is provided for you. You just fill out this short application. It will ask you what your idea of growing in advocacy looks like, what your goal is, and it'll pair you with someone who is familiar with that form of advocacy, and you just grow and learn and evolve as activists together. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
So in other words, if someone is interested in doing a certain type of rescue, for example, or wants to do speak outs or things like that, does that mean that they would be paired with someone that has that experience and therefore can share, you know, tips and things that make them feel more comfortable doing it? Is that kind of the idea?
Absolutely. This person is there for you, you know, whenever you need them. So say someone like me, for example, with experience with disruptions, speak outs, pressure campaigns, etc., organizing demonstrations myself, organizing vigils for the animals where we bear witness. I would be paired with someone who wants to evolve in their activism in that way.
Great.
Yeah.
And you went through it a bit fast. Just go over some of the other areas too, and then why don't we jump into a video watching you in action, and then we'll come back on and I'll ask you this question.
Absolutely.
Got the file going here. This is a little bit new for me, so.
This has been going on for 38 years with no medical advancements for humans. It continues because it is heavily.
His technologies are going to create some new
Lord Green, why do you condemn testing on dogs? Dogs are the upgrade at Texas A&M University. At the beginning of this speech, Eleanor showed us a picture of her own dog. How do you think that she would feel if these tests were being done on her own animals? This has been going on for 38 years with no medical advancements for humans. It continues because it is heavily funded. That is the only reason this continues. Eleanor Green, shut the dog labs down. Shut the dog labs down. They're suffering in your care. You can stop this. You can change this. Eleanor Green, shut the dog labs down. 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 Shut the dog labs down.
Wow. Let me get back to you here. Wow. So what happened from there? I can't play the whole thing, but what happened from there? Were you arrested?
Yes. Well, no, we were just simply detained actually that day, but we were basically banned from that property, which I will never go back anyways. There's no reason for me to go back. But that was just a disruption of, you know, Texas A&M University for their muscular dystrophy dog laboratory in Indianapolis. And yeah, I mean, that was actually put on by PETA. PETA was People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. That was something that they're heavily targeting Texas A&M because of this dog lab. So.
Wow. Well, thank you for that amazing work. And that must, how do you, there's a couple of things I want to ask you about because you do this kind of activism that can be so stressful. How do you deal with, you know, how do you get yourself kind of worked up to do this and have like the courage? Is it just like you're so motivated by the way you feel about the animals? And also, do you think part of it is though that you've been given some guidance how to do it, or did you just kind of jump in there and start, you know, just learn by the school of hard knocks? How did you do? How did you get involved?
I've been really fortunate to learn from activists around, the Toronto area. When I first started doing activism, I wanted to, learn everything I possibly could about how I could, be the best activist for the animals and how I could create the most change for them. Activists in communities around the country, here in the States as well. I'm constantly empowered, and I have incredible mentors, with these great animal rights organizations who help me if I have any questions, because I'm constantly evolving. I'm always going to, continuously learn how to best advocate for animals. I want everyone to know that I deal with anxiety. I usually have cotton mouth. I'm like sweating profusely when I'm about to do something like this. It is not easy for me, but I push down those barriers because what's happening to animals and the urgency involved is so important to me that I just know that, we have this end goal, and it's animal liberation, and I have to be my best self for them. So,
And of course, I understand and know that you also condone only nonviolent, lawful, you know, demonstrations within the law. And I know that DXE talks a lot about how when animals are the right to rescue, basically, the right to rescue when animals are in a deplorable situation that is unjust. So that's a whole other subject we could talk about. But let's go into a little bit more of your activism, or some of the, and how basically how effective you can be as an activist. We do want to keep stressing that's our point. Here's one campaign. Let's talk about the American Greeting Cards campaign. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is another wonderful PETA pressure campaign to get American Greetings to pull all of the basically circus-like exploitive imagery of chimpanzees in their greeting cards, pull them all from their company's website. And actually, a huge victory for chimpanzees is that Rite Aid is pulling all of these circus-like, cutesy images of chimpanzees from their shelves. So that American Greetings demonstration, where we actually delivered this heart-shaped card to the headquarters, that had a huge impact on that decision for Rite Aid to start pulling these images of these chimpanzees.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's super important, not only chimpanzees, of course. I am sure you want it for all animals, because the image of them being happy, captive animals that are in their little paradise, and you go see these happy animals. But, people are waking up. When they go to zoos, they're saying, hey, these animals look miserable. This is wrong, But yet there's still people that get pulled in, and that sort of greeting card can really, propagate that, keep that going, that image. So it really is. It really is.
It perpetuates the idea that people want these, cute animals too in their life, and they often go buy chimpanzees because of these cute images. So what PETA is urging American Greetings to do is, just use these animals in their natural habitat. Use these images of these chimpanzees in the wild. I mean, that's what people want to see. They're still beautiful animals, and that's why we're drawn to these cards, because we love animals. They're beautiful.
How about family scenes? How about showing them in their family environments?
Yeah.
There's lots of ways you can show them rather than exploitation. That's absolutely true. So let's see, what else do we have? We have a whole bunch. The cow trailer. This is really important video footage. Why don't you talk about that for a moment? And we'll get into that video. So go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about how that you got involved in that.
Absolutely. So a friend of mine actually sent me a message saying, did you hear that there is an overturned slaughter truck in Detroit? And I couldn't believe it. I rarely see trucks, transport trucks in that area, let alone, I never would have imagined that something like this would happen there. So I just threw my coat on, and I knew that no matter what the situation was, I wanted to be there to document these animals and tell their stories appropriately. So I head down to Detroit, which is about 45 minutes from my house, and the truck had been tipped over on its side for about 2 hours by the time I'd gotten there.
I got the footage now, so let me go ahead and show it.
The westbound I-94 ramp onto southbound I-75. That ramp is closed right now. We're told this is a livestock trailer with animals on board. No word yet from police on the condition of that driver.
Do you have someone from the USDA here?
This is an active scene right now.
Do you have someone from the USDA here?
Hold on.
If you have an accident involving animals, you need the USDA here. It's not a crime scene.
It's not a crime scene. It's an emergency scene.
As you guys can see, there's an overturned truck carrying animals to their death. We've entered the ramp here to document this overturned truck carrying sentient beings to their death. The crime is that 25 cows were being transported to Plainwell, Michigan, to the slaughterhouse where they were going to have their throats slit.
You have every right to be out here and supporting whatever you choose.
We're just here to support the victims right now.
I got you. I understand that. And essentially, when you're coming into our scene, that becomes a different issue because it is a hazmat scene and it's not necessarily safe for.
I was just asking where the USDA inspector was because since they're considered.
I don't have that information.
Okay.
Right now, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll walk with you guys back to your vehicle to make sure you guys are safe. Okay?
Well, we'll just go to the other side of the road. You don't need to walk us to the vehicle.
Legally, you guys are liable for citation right now.
Okay.
So I can write
Well,
you guys
we'll leave your crime scene. They put caution tape up to designate that it's a crime scene now, and we will walk away from the scene. But they did just put that up.
I got you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're on the freeway and you're liable for a citation. Okay.
Okay. A citation for what though?
A ticket for being on the freeway. You're not allowed to be on the
Okay.
freeway.
So if we were broken down on the freeway, would we get a citation for that?
That's a different story.
Okay. Are we your main concern right now, or is it the animals? I'm not going to argue with you, sir, but I think your main concern should be those 25, 30 animals on the truck and not us. You asked us to leave. You're the police, and we were going to leave, and then you asked for identification at the same time. We shouldn't be your priority.
For a citation, okay? And
You said that you weren't going to give us one. If you want to ticket me for being on the freeway, I will fight it in court.
Okay, so can you please give me your...
I don't understand why you need my information.
Because you are committing a civil infraction right now.
Okay, sir, you asked us to leave, and we were walking away.
Let's go. Let's go.
I think your main concern should be the cows on that truck. I don't understand why you don't care. Like, you care more about us being on a closed ramp with no through traffic than you do about the cows on the truck.
Ma'am, the only reason I'm with you is because you're on the freeway, okay?
I'm going to step off it for a moment and let's fill the people in a little bit. So obviously there was this terrible crash and the police came. And how did you guys find out about it, that there was a crash?
It was posted on social media somewhere, and a friend of mine saw it from her friend, and my friend Kristen, who was there with me that day, she's also an animal rights activist, and she's like, Maria, did you hear about this? And next thing I know, we were there, and we both rushed there. And the thing is, they were on a ramp. They had tipped over on the ramp, so it wasn't easily accessible. So we actually slid down. There was snow that day. We slid down this huge embankment on the freeway I slid down on my butt. I was wearing tennis shoes. I slid down on my butt onto all the way down this embankment because I didn't want to fall. And we ran up the ramp with someone from the press, and I'm like, you need to see what I said. I said to the photographer for the newspaper, I said, you need to go with us. You need to see what's happening to them, and you need to document that. And he was there with us too. So we get on the ramp, and
did the media air it?
The media. So that first segment was actually from an aerial helicopter point of view from a different outlet. They ended up doing a story on it. The photographer, his photos were used, but they weren't quite like super up close, but they also quoted me, and what they quoted is the truth of what happened that night. That there were 38 animals on that truck, 38 cows, and the truth is none of them made it out alive that day. If they weren't shot right there on the ramp, they ended up continuing their journey to the slaughterhouse that night. And the newspaper actually quoted me verbatim. I couldn't believe it that, they quoted me saying that, because that's the reality. That's the reality of what happened to these animals. And oftentimes you don't see that in these large media outlets. You don't see the truth. So that's why I stayed there. I was there for 10 hours that day, and I was there till about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I could only see so much from the other side of the freeway where I was. I could just see the truck overturned. I could see a crane going into the truck. I could hear them using what sounded like jaws of life to create these huge openings in the truck. I could see the cows breathing. I could see their breath exiting the holes in the truck. I could hear them bellowing out in fear. And they had stayed on their side like that for around 10 hours before they started moving them around. And part of that video, which you haven't shown yet, is when I started hearing them shoot them. And I knew that something was going to happen, something similar to that was going to happen. And everything was, unfortunately, this industry, animal agriculture, they continue to deceive the public. They don't want the public to see what's actually happening to animals. So they did everything in such a meticulous way that you never would have known that they were really killing animals on that truck, that they were dumping the dead cows out of that truck, because they were keeping it all under the wall of that ramp. Everything was still hidden. And I couldn't believe they were able to move around these, 1,000-pound beings.
I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in a reconnaissance crew. They bring in people, so to speak. I might be being overly dramatic or, woo-woo here, but it almost seems like they have their people to come in and, clean up the mess.
Yeah.
The mess like objects here. This is really fascinating. I would love to play some more of it. I think we should go on because we're going to run out of time if we don't. So what was the conclusion of this? The thing that worked out from this, that was the real win, was to get that out into the media. And were you able to take that campaign further? Like, were you able to get that spread around on social media and stuff from what happened?
I
Or
think
did
the
it
last
get buried like so many things do?
I really thought that it would have more of an impact with people because it had such an impact with me. I mean, I was in bed for 2 days after that. I just couldn't believe what I'd witnessed and what happened. And I just, we're so fortunate though, because PETA plans on putting a billboard in that area to memorialize the individuals who had their lives lost that night. And I think that video, the same video you're playing, has been maybe shared almost 6,000 times on Facebook. So people are seeing it. And then the win for the animals for me was the fact that the Detroit Free Press quoted, me saying, the truth is, no one's going to make it out of this situation alive. These animals have lived traumatic lives. First of all, they were Holstein cows, and they'd spend their whole lives as milk producing machines, 2 to 5 years, only for this tragedy to happen to them. And then for them to be met with
such a violent,
yeah.
I'm sure they know what's going on. They know that if they see the cow next to them getting shot in the head because it was probably too injured or to bother with or whatever. Maybe they couldn't lift it. Who knows? I mean, I'm just speaking from my own head. But it's incredible. Oh my gosh. So let's go on to a couple more. You have here, you did the Chrysler. Tell us about this campaign.
Yeah, Chrysler's PETA's Chrysler campaign against their sponsorship of the Iditarod They had, I think it was 12 demonstrations against Chrysler for this sponsorship.
Yeah, for those people that don't know anything about it, could you go in a little more detail about what a Iditarod is?
Absolutely. So the Iditarod is the dog sled race in Anchorage, Alaska. It actually, I think it just finished, and it spans for about 10 days. These dogs are forced to run in inclement weather. It's freezing cold. They often they run about 100 miles a day, these dogs do, and they suffer from frostbite, heart attacks, bleeding, ulcers. They choke on their own vomit. 150 dogs have died during the race alone, and that doesn't even include the dogs who have perished off season. It's an absolute nightmare for these dogs who are forced to run. And Chrysler was one of the leading sponsors, still one of the biggest sponsors of the Iditarod. And it took about 12 demonstrations. I did a couple with them. One was like a car smash where we purchased a car and smashed it up. I was dressed as a dog, and then I was handcuffed as a dog, which was just it was a great sight, to be honest. But another one which helped, I think, speed up this campaign here was last February, I believe it was. Another activist and I, we handcuffed ourselves to a car at the Chicago Auto Show in protest of Chrysler sponsorship. And it was a Chrysler vehicle, of course. And this was also another PETA, a great PETA demonstration. And we were arrested that day. Chrysler, the next month, failed to show up in court. Chrysler, the venue failed to show up in court. And a couple days later, they announced that they were no longer sponsoring the Iditarod. So that was a huge victory for these dogs.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations. That is amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a fantastic PETA campaign.
Yes, and it does tend to be very effective when sponsorships, when they go to the corporate sponsor and the public goes and it becomes public. Because let's face it, we can vote with our dollars. And this is so empowering, Maria, to hear you talk. I'm sure our viewers are really getting fired up because, many of us, we see these horrific things. We see the footage on social media all the time, or maybe like, I've gone to a lot of different things, and some of the activists that are really active are constantly entrenched in this. But there are ways, working together with other groups, becoming strong, learning from others that have had experience. There's opportunities to really make change happen. And it appears to be happening more rapidly now to me. I like to think things are changing more quickly. How do you feel about that? Do you think that activism in general is being taken more seriously, animal rights, etc., compassion, and all of that? Do you think that that all the work that people are doing, it is having effect overall?
I really think it's having an effect, that we're creating these pressure campaigns and these target campaigns that are creating real change for animals at rapid speeds too. I was part of the coalition to abolish the fur trade out of Los Angeles. They're putting together these incredible campaigns. Some of them are shorter than others. Yeah, this one was against Alice and Olivia, and this one only lasted a couple weeks, and they ended up dropping their fur from their line, which was an incredible victory for the animals exploited in the fur industry. This was in Chicago. These great activists who I have the privilege of being so close with, their community of activists in Chicago is just outstanding. And yeah, for everyone that wants to possibly get involved in these campaigns that are very targeted and apply pressure heavily, the Coalition to Abolish the Fur Trade is a really great organization. They've already had two huge victories in the past couple months, and one of their main targets right now is can I say it? Saks Fifth Avenue.
Well, it is their target. We're not.
It's their target.
fact. We try not to mention, brand names. That we do invite them on at any time, but we do hope that these fashion houses and huge department stores that have such a reputation and history in our country, that they'll do the right thing and show compassion for animals, because we all know what's going on. A lot of people did not know, but I think the information has been through social media and all the different outlets and activists. It's pretty much everywhere. That I think the worst, I was doing, I can't remember who I was interviewing, but someone that had done a break-in, and they showed the atrocities of the feces. Aside from how they're killed, which is horrific torture, they showed the living conditions, and it was just like, anybody can look at that and still have a soul and wear a fur coat. I just don't understand. It's just insane. So
Yeah, we're seeing large, some of the main designers drop fur from their lines. We're seeing major cities ban fur, and I really do believe in the power of people. And as long as we continue to target these entities appropriately and use social media to the animals' advantage, I really think we're going to continue to see victories in their favor.
And why can't furriers learn to do their wonderful designs with faux fur? I mean, the faux furs are so realistic, it's hard to tell the difference. It really is. You have to get that match out and burn it to see if it melts.
Yeah, sometimes I struggle.
It's really hard to tell. I mean, if people want to have that look, or it's so important to them, why can't the designers who have been doing it for years, that have the experience, come out with amazing product, just like mushroom leather, right? And pineapple leather. There's so many alternatives. I just showed, not to digress too far, I just showed my mom's nanny. She's wanting to learn some vegan recipes, and I showed her how to do eggplant parmesan. I'm Italian. I think you are too, right? Or
Me
your
too.
name is. Anyway, so I showed her, and she took it home to her family, totally vegan eggplant parmesan. They loved it. They never had eggplant parmesan, but the vegan version, they thought it was phenomenal. So, it's happening. It just isn't happening fast enough for some of us, but it will happen.
Yeah.
We have another, and I was explaining to her about eggs and egg farms. People don't understand, but we have an egg rescue, this one here. Let's talk about that. I got it from Instagram.
Yeah, so almost a year ago, COVID-19 had just, emerged. It stems from these places of violence and exploitation. The breeding grounds for it. And because of the pandemic, this factory egg farm in Iowa was closing, and it was a free-for-all for anyone who wanted to take some of these hens out of there. I don't know if they knew rescue teams were going in, but I was part of a rescue team that went in, and I put 55 hens in my car. And 55.
What kind of car do you have? I'm trying to visualize.
I have a Ford Escape.
Not too big,
So
right?
it's not very big, but the way I saw it is, these hens are in these battery cages, and I have a 10-hour drive, and if it's to get them out of there and get them to safety here in the West to sanctuaries, I was gonna take that risk of them being slightly uncomfortable, which they actually weren't, because they actually tend to bundle up together. They huddle up together. So there was actually a lot of space that they weren't even using in these large crates in my car. But yeah, they were closing due to COVID-19. And if the hens weren't pulled out, they were all going to be thrown into CO2 chambers and gassed to death. So we were very fortunate to pull 55 out that day. And one of them, I want to mention Atreyu. Her story, she's now with my friends at a safe haven here in Michigan, and she laid on the floor. She was basically pancaked. She wasn't moving. We were shuffling back and forth, pulling hens out, as many as we could. And she laid there with a broken wing and a broken leg and a bruise so deep it looked like someone actually stepped on her. She was left there to die. There were wheelbarrows full of, discarded, deceased beings, and feces everywhere. And I pulled Atreyu up, and she sat with me in this. She was in the center console in a shoebox wrapped in a little towel. And I was shocked that she made it all the way back to Michigan. But once in Michigan, she has had a leg amputation, a wing amputation, and now she's a one-legged, one-wing factory egg farm survivor. And her story just, she's so beautiful. And every time I get to visit her at Ahimsa, she just radiates so much like life, you know. And
I wish
I
you
didn't
had
think
a picture
I
to put up.
know.
Now, what is the sanctuary you were mentioning? Maybe we can have them on and give them a little publicity.
Yeah, so my friend Carrie runs Ahimsa Safe Haven. It's located here in Onstead, Michigan, and they're home to a bunch of beautiful individuals. And she's running this place all on her own, and she's, you know, day in and day out there for these animals. And she's got, you know, Trey's care alone has cost, you know, probably over $5,000, and she's just given her everything. And it's so deserving. But I knew that she would be safe there because I knew that Carrie would take the best care of her, and she wouldn't give up on her, and she hasn't. And she's thriving, thank goodness.
That is just a wonderful story, and it's so heartwarming to hear. We're down to our last few moments, so we do want to stress again the website. I do think I have a banner for that.
I think that maybe I misquoted. Oh yeah, that's it. Animal Activism Mentorship.com. There we go. Thank you.
It's not right here. It's activist here. It is activism.com.
Yep, activism.
We did have that in the comments, I think. One of our great
Yep, Animal Activism Mentorship.com.
That's right. So yeah, let me take that is not, yeah, I wrote animal activists.
That's okay. Honestly, sometimes I can't get it all out myself. I might have said it wrong, to be honest. But
yeah, it's a long name, but
I know.
You know, we want to make sure people get it right. But we will put that link in there again and make sure that everybody knows where to go and that you can get this help. And just if you want, I'll just bring this back up for a moment. Let me share on. The site.
Oh, cool.
On YouTube. Yeah. Is that showing? Yeah. So this site on YouTube where you can go ahead in and watch these videos right now if you want. There's a number of videos on here, right? So you can just go in and get a feel for what people are doing and you know, and then contact them because we can all, I too. I mean, I've signed up for a couple of different online digital activism sites. We're doing stuff. So even though we have the pandemic, we have lots we can do.
Absolutely. That's my goal.
It's a good time to, yeah, because we have time on our hands. Well, we are down to our last moments. Maria, we'd love to have you come back. You are absolutely an activist extraordinaire. And I do thank you so much for all the things you do for animals. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. We want to keep up with your stories. So please come back again soon, will you?
I definitely will. Thank you so much for having me. And I do want to mention before I leave that if anyone's interested in joining us, you can find Animal Activism Mentorship on Facebook. And also we'll be having a week-long tour, basically an activism tour. We'll be going to different places in the South, mostly Florida. And then we have a convergence that we're going to announce in Chicago, which will be isolated to the city of Chicago pretty much, and it's going to be a week long. So if you're interested in joining us either of those, you can follow us on Facebook and get involved.
Now, even if the activists are elsewhere, they can do Zoom calls, right? So there's ways to, so if you're in another part of this country, you can still get this training and interact with people. It's better if you could do it one-on-one, and go together and stuff. But so there's in all, your goal perhaps is to get it in all the cities, and you have it in several cities now. Is that how it's set up?
Yeah. We just, we do these little tours where, the mentors and mentees and new activists go to these different areas, and we just put together demonstrations that are, for a week and hit all these different exploiters and yeah, it's definitely a cool way to be a part of something that is helping the animals. And it's very resourceful too, because what I think is really important is giving other people the tools and the resources and the confidence to do these things and take this sort of action. Because so many people are held back. You know, I was held back by my own fears for a long time. I still am. And I just want other people to be empowered to, you know, be the best advocate that they can possibly be.
And I think that's a good note to end on, that we're all afraid, and that every great thing that was ever done involved doing something that you didn't, almost always, something you didn't want to do or was scary to do, and you have to take that step to break through that wall. It seems like the wall's crumbling and the wall is weakening as more and more people step on the bandwagon to be more compassionate, to care about the planet, to care about animals, and to care about their health. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed, our hearts strong, and we're just going to keep going forward. So thank you so much for being on, folks. Thanks for watching. I'll have another amazing guest for you next week. So tune in again next Saturday at 10 a.m. for the Action Hour. Catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Maria. Thanks for being on. Don't leave. Don't leave.
I won't
People.
leave.